there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to be talking about Blu-ray titles that no longer work. This is due to a manufacturing process. So a few weeks ago, or maybe even a few months ago now, there was a big story that came out about DVDs. The way that they were manufactured, the way that the layers inside the disc are glued together. Basically it's a manufacturing error, and that these DVDs can no longer be read by DVD machines, and the same thing is happening with Blu-ray titles by the look of it. So anyway, with that, let's get into this article. Let's break down this information here and see exactly what's happening with these Blu-ray titles. Also, we have a huge list that I found of all the defective Blu-ray titles. You may want to have a look through it if you own Blu-ray titles yourself, just to check if any of your movies that you own are on that list. But without further ado, let's jump into this. It comes to us from Joe Blow. Over 600 Blu-ray titles no longer work. So it's not just DVDs that are defective, but over 600 Blu-rays with known defects. They could already be in your collection. Like I said, we have a huge list. I'll show you the link. I'll put the link in the description if you want to check out that website for yourself. We'll have a brief look at it in just a sec as well. So when it comes to physical media, there's always has to be a concern for degradation. We saw it with VHS, cassette tapes, laserdiscs. Eventually they become unwatchable. DVD was supposed to fix that issue, giving us the same experience each time with a much longer shelf life than laserdiscs, which are currently dropping like flies. And judging on Bumbray's article about Warner Brothers titles, the issue is present as ever. But those are DVDs. The two whole generations ago, and there's a reason we've since switched. But what about Blu-rays? So yeah, just to go on that information there for a second. So that was the story that came out a while ago, talking about DVDs. The fact that DVDs are basically on a time constraint because of the way they were manufactured. They're becoming very old now. The old technology is falling apart. They can only last for so long. So if you do have DVDs that you own that you haven't watched for a long time, it's worth taking them out of the covers, and it's worth trying out your DVDs to see which ones still work. It's just worth doing that, guys. Then you can get rid of the ones that don't work and keep the ones that do. It will free up some space in your house, so it's worth checking. Moving on to Blu-rays though. So Blu-rays were actually made with the intention of lasting 100 years, but that doesn't mean that there isn't issues that spring up. Any discs that have two layers, such as BD50s, which have 50 gigabytes of storage versus 25 gigabytes for standard, are more likely to degrade as the two layers are essentially glued together. Lack of proper storage, or even an issue where initially printed, can cause these layers to separate, rendering the video unusable. It's why proper storage is essential for any collection. Even ever have a title just completely stop at one point in the film, that's because it's having an issue switching between the data layers. So it sounds like these Blu-ray discs that have the biggest storage value on the disc, having two 25 gigabyte layers glued together, after a set period of time, or if they haven't been stored properly, then these two 25 gigabyte layers can become unglued, and it will basically make the movie unwatchable. So like I keep saying, like I already said with the DVDs, if you own any Blu-ray movies, it's worth going back and checking them if you haven't watched them for a long time, just to make sure that they're still working. I was able to come across a website cataloging a number of defective titles. So with that said, let's go over to this website. So this is Blu-ray defect UEUX. Sorry, it's hard to say. Blu-ray defect UEUX.com. So if you own Blu-ray movies, it's worth coming to this website, checking if any of your titles are featured on this website, because they could be defective and you may just want to make sure that they're still working. So there's a huge, massive list here. It says here the last update was the 10th of February 2024. So it hasn't been updated for a while now, but it's still worth checking if your movies are on here. I'll put this link in the description. You can go over and check your movies on this against this database if you need to. But going back over to the article. So, many are BD50s and are a result of printing problems. The list includes a bevy of popular titles, like these titles here. I'm not going to read all these titles out, guys. Have a pause and read of these titles at your own leisure if you need to. The issues can range from the film skipping, artifacting, and being unable to play entirely. So, even Criterion, who is considered the absolute top tier of physical media, has had its fair share of issues. 27 Criterion releases have known defects with classics such as the following titles here. 8.5, The Seventh Seal, M and Paris, Texas falling on the list as well. The biggest offender may be the Citizen Kane 4K, which Criterion had to reissue discs for and offer $10 credit to purchasers. So yeah, I mean, physical media, I mean, it can be a great thing. With us being at the mercy of streaming services, if your favorite movie franchise or movies are on a streaming service, if their kind of deal with the publisher of those movies falls through, and then that movie or franchise is no longer on a streaming service, it may be hard to find to watch a digital version. So having the physical copy of your movies is a great thing. But obviously they degrade over time if they're not stored properly, if they're not looked after, if they're not well packaged. So that is obviously the downside of owning physical media. That at least shows the lengths of Criteria is willing to go to make up for those kind of issues. So yeah, not just storage issues, but kind of manufacturing issues as well, which is kind of being stated here. But it looks like the publisher here, Criterion, they've made up for their issues with their manufacturing process, which is great to hear. Because unlike massive Warner Brother issues from 2006 to 2008, these are more sporadic and self-contained, likely down to a specific batch of films versus an entire lineup. Yeah, so when it talks about Warner Brother issues from 2006 to 2008, that was the issue with the DVDs that were put out. Warner Brothers put out DVDs between those dates, and a lot of the DVDs they manufactured between those two dates had major issues with them. So if anything, my hours of combing through message boards, blog spots, and responses just prove problems occur all the time and can be quite random. There are certainly some companies that pop up more than others, but it really comes down to who did the actual release. And I'd also like to point out how little boutique labels like Scream Factory and Arrow Video appear on the list. Not to say that they weren't without their problems, but as collectors, we have to take the wins where we can. I'd encourage you to check out your Blu-rays rather than just putting them on the shelf, assuming they work. You could just have a bunch of expensive paperweights on your shelves. Have you had any experience? Have you had any of these issues with your Blu-rays? Which companies have you noticed have the best quality? Are these points against physical media as a whole? Yeah. Like I say, guys, I guess that's just a thing to take away from this video. It's an interesting thing that, you know, we helm physical media as being a great thing against digital releases. If we can no longer find a digital version, having a physical media copy is great, but we also at the same time, manufacturing issues, storage issues, all that kind of stuff can be a downside to physical media. But like I say, check the link down in the description, go over to that website, check the database, make sure that your Blu-rays and your DVDs are still working. If they don't work, then you can contact the publisher who made them, and you may be able to get some sort of, you may be able to get a new copy, you may be able to get a refund, so it's worth diving in and checking out your collection just to make sure it works. But guys, you hear this news and this story, what do you think about it? Jump into the comment section, let me know your thoughts, comments and opinions as always. Thanks so much for being here, make sure you hit the like button before you leave. Consider becoming a subscriber of the channel if you haven't done so far. It goes a long way to supporting my content, so I always appreciate that. And I will see you in the next video.